Have you ever met someone who barely says a word for an entire conversation? Everyone else is telling stories, filling every pause, keeping things going. And they just listen. They nod, they watch. Maybe they say a sentence or two before it all wraps up. It's easy to explain that away. Maybe they're shy. Maybe they're a little awkward. Maybe they just don't have much to add. But most of the time, those guesses miss what's really going on. Because for a lot of quiet people, silence isn't the absence of thought. It's the result of having too much of it. While everyone else is hunting for the next thing to say, their mind is already reading facial expressions, catching shifts in tone, weighing what someone really meant, taking in the whole mood of the room. Before a single word leaves their mouth, they've run through a dozen possibilities and filtered most of them out. What looks like hesitation from the outside is often a storm of activity on the inside. So here's the irony. The people who talk the least aren't always the ones with the fewest thoughts. Sometimes they're carrying the busiest mind in the room. So why does a quiet person's brain work this way? Why does talking feel effortless for some people and take so much invisible work for others? To answer that, we need to look at how the brain filters information, aims your attention, and finds its way through something as messy as a conversation. If you've ever been told you're too quiet, people were probably listening to your words, but they had no idea what your brain was doing before those words even existed. One of the biggest myths about quiet people is that there's less going on inside. In reality, they're often processing far more than anyone realizes. Neuroscience suggests we differ in something called sensory sensitivity. That's basically how much your nervous system notices and reacts to what's around you. Some brains filter out background details really efficiently. Others soak up a lot more. A small change in someone's face, a wobble in their voice, the energy of a room, even two conversations at once. All of it can compete for attention at the same time. It doesn't mean their senses are sharper. It means their brain treats more of the incoming information as important enough to stop and evaluate. And the brain relies on selective attention to decide what actually deserves your focus. For a lot of quiet people, that spotlight never sits still. Instead of locking onto just the words, it keeps moving between someone's expression, their tone, their body language, and their own thoughts about how it all fits together. So while someone else is already loading up a reply, the quiet person is still assembling the full picture. And the more you let in, the higher your cognitive load climbs. Every observation costs mental energy to sort and interpret. So the result isn't an empty mind scrambling for something to say. It's an active mind trying not to speak before it's understood enough. That's why so many quiet people spend more time watching than talking. They're not quiet because they've got no ideas. They're quiet because several ideas showed up at once, and their brain wants to understand them before picking the one that's actually worth saying out loud. So the silence isn't a sign of an empty room, it's the sound of a mind still working. Before they respond, quiet people often do what psychologists call deep processing. Instead of reacting to the first thing that pops up, they look at it from a few angles. Not just the words, but the intention behind them, the emotional context, and how their response might land. It might only take a couple of seconds, but it creates a completely different rhythm of talking. At the same time, many are quietly tracking the emotions in the room. They catch it when a smile looks forced, when the energy drains out of someone's voice, when a short pause carries more weight than the sentence around it. That's why they often get surprisingly good at reading faces. A raised eyebrow, tightened shoulders, a flicker of disappointment. It registers long before anyone else notices, gathered automatically as the brain works out the social situation. One reason this happens may involve what neuroscientists call the mirror neuron system. Researchers still debate exactly how these neurons shape our behavior, but they're thought to help us intuitively pick up on what other people are doing and feeling. In everyday life, that can make some people especially tuned in to someone else's emotional state, so they kind of feel tension before it's ever said out loud. So quiet people are often doing something invisible to everyone else. They're not just waiting for a turn to talk. They're predicting how their words might land, running through different responses, and picking the one that feels most thoughtful, or least likely to start something unnecessary. Their quiet isn't a retreat from the conversation. It's one of the ways their brain gathers what it needs before deciding that speaking is actually worth it. Now, this way of moving through the world has real strengths, but it also comes with a hidden cost most people never notice. Every conversation turns into a series of invisible decisions. Should I say this? Will they take it the wrong way? Is now the right moment? Or should I wait? Each question seems tiny on its own, but repeat it dozens of times a day, and it starts to drain you. Psychologists call this slow drain decision fatigue. The more choices your brain has to weigh, even small social ones, the harder it gets to make the next one with any confidence. For some quiet people, all that weighing tips into analysis paralysis. They keep polishing the thought, searching for the most accurate words, and by the time they feel ready, the conversation has usually moved on. Over time, that builds into a painful pattern of missed moments. Ideas stay unspoken, questions never get asked. Feelings stay hidden. Not because they don't care, but because their own bar for speaking is set much higher than anyone realizes. And the people around them rarely see any of this. Silence gets taken at face value. Friends assume they're bored. Co-workers read them as checked out. New people might even see them as cold or quietly arrogant, when it's the exact opposite. A lot of quiet people care deeply. They just take longer to figure out how to show it. That misunderstanding gets exhausting, not because talking itself is hard, but because every sentence carries the weight of all these calculations no one else can see. The heaviest thing they carry isn't the talking, it's everything their mind feels it has to process before a single word is allowed out. But there's a real upside to this slower style. Quiet people tend to regret their words a lot less than you'd think. It's not that they always know the perfect thing to say, it's that their brain naturally puts a pause between the impulse and the action. Neuroscientists often call this inhibitory control, the brain's ability to resist the urge to react right away. Instead of letting the first emotional reaction become spoken words, the mind holds it for a beat, making room to check whether that response is actually accurate, helpful, or even necessary. That pause is backed by a bigger set of skills known as executive functions, which help us weigh consequences, shift perspective, and make deliberate choices instead of impulsive ones. For a lot of quiet people, this is baked in. Before they speak, they instinctively ask whether their words really match what they mean, and whether they'll improve the conversation instead of just filling the silence. It also reflects a lot of self-regulation. They're less driven by the itch to be heard and more focused on expressing themselves responsibly. While other people might interrupt or talk before they fully understand what's happening, quiet folks give themselves extra time to watch, think, and adjust as new information shows up. From the outside, that delay is easy to mistake for uncertainty. In reality, it's often the opposite. Their response comes later because it's already been tested against a bunch of possibilities in their head. They're not slow to respond, they just respond after their mind has finished the work most people never even notice. Still, understanding why your brain prefers silence doesn't mean silence is always the right answer. There's a common idea that quiet people should just accept who they are and never change, and the opposite idea that they have to become more outgoing to get anywhere. Neither extreme is how healthy communication works. Psychologists often talk about emotional health in terms of psychological flexibility, the ability to adapt how you act to different situations without losing your sense of self. So the goal isn't to become someone who always talks or someone who never does. The goal is to have the freedom to choose. And that freedom gets a lot easier when you feel emotionally safe. When people feel accepted instead of judged, the brain stops burning so much energy protecting itself. The need to rehearse every sentence, predict every reaction, brace for criticism, it slowly softens. Speaking becomes less about avoiding mistakes and more about sharing what genuinely matters. That's where self-expression starts to mean something different. It isn't measured by how much you talk or how much attention you pull in. Sometimes one honest sentence, at the right moment, carries more weight than a whole conversation full of automatic replies. And quiet people are often great at that, precisely because they took the time to think first. At the same time, silence should never turn into a place where your important thoughts and feelings stay locked away for good. There are moments when choosing to speak isn't a betrayal of your quiet nature. It's an act of trusting that your perspective deserves to exist right alongside everyone else's. The healthiest communicators aren't the ones who always have something to say. They're the ones who know when silence creates understanding and when a few careful words create connection. Silence is a genuine strength, but only when it stays a choice, not a prison built out of fear, overthinking, or the quiet belief that your voice matters less than everyone else's. Maybe the biggest misunderstanding about quiet people was never that they talk too little. It's that we mistake silence for emptiness. But a quiet mind is rarely an empty one. More often, it's a mind that observes before it reacts, reflects before it responds, and looks for understanding before it offers an opinion. The words might come later, but they're shaped by countless invisible moments of thought no one else ever gets to see. So if you've recognized yourself in any of this, maybe you've spent years believing something was wrong with the way you communicate. Maybe you've wondered why conversations seem so easy for everyone else, while your own thoughts need time to settle before they turn into words. Here's the truth. You may never have been someone who just doesn't talk much. You may have always been someone whose mind likes to finish its work before the talking begins. That doesn't make your voice any less valuable. It just means your voice follows a different rhythm, one shaped by observation, reflection, and intention instead of speed. And honestly, that's something worth appreciating, not apologizing for. So next time someone mistakes your silence for not caring, remember that silence isn't always an empty space. Sometimes it's exactly where the deepest thinking quietly takes shape, long before anyone else can hear it. If this one helped you see yourself or someone you love a little differently, stick around for the next conversation here at Deep Ravines Psychology Lab, where we'll keep exploring the fascinating ways the human mind shapes how we think, feel, and connect with the world around us.